Um, okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to this Java programming language course, and it's brought to you by Ciphering the Future. So throughout this course, we'll learn about the basics of Java, and you basically get to know a lot about how Java works, the different functions and methods you can use, and in the end, you'll be able to also build your own project using everything that we've learned this whole time. And so my name is Sara Langeri. I'll be your instructor for this course. Um, I have started self-studying Java, and then I've continued with it throughout my academic studies. So I have a lot of experience in this programming language, and yeah, I'm really passionate about it, and I hope that I can teach it well to you guys, and hopefully you guys can learn. It's class-based, object-oriented, and it's designed to have as few implementation and dependencies as possible. It's a compiled language, and its source code is basically converted to bytecode so that it can run only on a Java virtual machine. And basically, this Java virtual machine is a critical part of the Java platform. Basically, it's what makes Java platforms independent, and Java bytecode can be run on any platform that has a JVM, regardless of the hardware or the operating system. This makes Java very special from other programming languages. And so it was originally developed by James Gosling at Sun Microsystems in 1995. So it's not that old compared to others, but it's quite old. But it's really new. It was intended to be a language that was simple, object oriented, and platform independent. Basically, it's gained a lot of popularity, and it's now one of the most widely used programming languages in the world. You might have heard of it from TV shows, or maybe if you're on tech Twitter, a lot of software engineers use it. But a lot of our the apps you use on a daily basis, or the websites, have been programmed using Java. Um, that's why it's used for a wide variety of applications, including web development applications. So it's used to create both client side and server side applications. Then desktop applications, Java can be used basically to develop those applications, since it's a good choice for applications that need to be portable and secure. We'll get more into that later. Additionally, mobile applications, since it's a good choice for applications that need to be platform independent and reliable. Also, for enterprise applications, it's used to develop these applications, since it's a good choice for applications that need to be scalable and secure. So basically, if you're looking for a powerful, versatile, and secure programming language, then Java is a really good choice. It's a language that's used by millions of developers around the world, and it's constantly evolving to meet the needs of new applications and users and so on. So these are the features which make Java so special. First of all, it's object oriented. So it's an object oriented language, which means that code is organized into objects. Basically, objects have properties and methods, and they can interact with each other. This makes Java code easier to understand and interact with and maintain than procedural code. We'll get more into object-oriented programming throughout the course. Um, so yeah, stay tuned. Additionally, it's platform independent. So Java is a programming language that is used to create applications that can run on many different platforms. It's a compiled language, which means that the code is converted into bytecode before it's run. And so this makes Java much more efficient and portable than interpreted languages. Additionally, it is scalable. So it is scalable as it can be used to develop applications of any size. It can handle large-scale applications with ease. Java is an ideal choice for large corporations that need to develop and maintain complex applications and apps. Next is that it's secure. So Java is a very secure language. It has built-in security features that help to protect against malicious code and yeah. So it has features such as bytecode verification, sandboxing, type safety, etc. That ensures that Java remains a secure language as new security threats emerge, unfortunately. Um, Next is that it's extensible. So Java has a rich library of application programming interfaces, and for short, they're APIs. And so these APIs, they provide access to a wide range of functionality, such as networking, database access, and graphical user interface development. Developers can extend these APIs to add new features and functionality. Okay, so then there's something called the program development cycle. This is something that like every software engineer, every programmer has to go through while they're creating code, while they're programming. So first of all, it's to design the program. You have to have like a set idea of what you want to do. Also, this is what you're going to be going through for your project at the end of like the course. So yeah, back to the steps. First of all, is designing the program. You have to think about what you want to add, what you want to do, what you want to code, and then when you already like have an outline basically and like organize and you know what you want to do, then you can go to writing the code. Writing code is what you'll be learning today and throughout the whole course, obviously. That's when you're like actually constructing it and you're producing like a certain thing. After that, you have to correct the syntax and like all the errors. So the syntax errors are basically the like errors that happen like which follow the rules of Java. So for example, maybe you forget to add like a certain like a semicolon, which is very important in Java, or you open a parentheses, but you forget to close the parentheses, which you have to do. So that's the time we have to like correct all these errors and like syntax. After that, you have to test your program. You have to see like if it runs, and like you have to test it. Then you have to correct the logic errors. The logic errors are basically the errors that they're not like syntax error. They're not like, oh, they will still be able to run. You'll still be able to run with logic errors, but maybe it doesn't work the way you want it. Maybe it doesn't work as efficiently as you want it to be. So that's the time where you correct it. And then you can like go back and it's basically a cycle. It's never ending. You can still like come back and do more. Okay, so now we'll get into the Java structure. Basically, okay, a Java program, programs are called classes. It consists of a collection of classes. A class is a template for creating a particular form of an object. Each object created by the template contains the same numbers of each of which is either a field or a method. And a field is basically a container that holds a value. So these classes, they all exist inside a container called project. And all classes have at least one method called main. So a method is basically a block of code that is executed when the object is called. The main method is the entry point for executing a Java program. So there has to be a main method in every Java program. Basically, the main method can contain code to execute or call other methods, and it can be placed in any class that's part of a program. So as you see here, this is like the project, the program inside of it is the class. Inside of it is the main method, which is where you write your code. Here's an example of like how it looks like when you code it. So this is basically the class name. It's a public class named my first class. And then here it's like, this is basically the main method. And then here you have all like the content inside of it. So yeah, that's a Java class example. We'll actually learn more about classes and methods when we learn more about object-oriented programming like later. But yeah. Okay. There are 3 laws of Java, which are very, very, very important. You have to like memorize them or like they have to know them by heart, because if you don't, then you might like face some problems that you'll have to recheck a lot of times. But they're really simple and they're only 3, okay? So first of all, it's that every line has to end with a semicolon. Unless the next symbol has to be like those curly brackets or like the closing curly brackets. But yeah, so example here, when you're here, we're basically declaring a variable. You end it with a semicolon. Here, we finished our line of code. You end it with a semicolon. So it's really important because if you don't, then you'll get a syntax error. Okay, next is that every curly bracket has another like closing curly bracket. So you can't just open one and then not close it. You have to remember to close it. Lastly is that classes, they start with capital letters, but methods and variables, they start with lowercase letters. So you have to remember that because you also might get some syntax error. Okay, so for today's class, in order like to code and maybe like you want to try it out, we're going to use an online compiler. In Java, variables are basic, or in like any programming language, they're containers that hold data values. So they're used to store information that is needed during the execution of a program. Each variable in Java is assigned a data type that designates the type and quantity of value it can hold. Like each data type, it like actually holds like amount of like storage space. So a variable is a memory location name for the data. There are multiple and there are like many like types of variables. The ones that I have on right here are like the basic ones, which you will probably need all the time, and they're the ones that you should definitely know, especially as a beginner. So first of all is like, and you might actually know these if you know other programming languages. They're all quite similar and probably like same. So first of all is a string. String is for storing text. So like, yeah, such as hello or cat. So it's like any like words you want to say. My name is, I am, like anything, dog, cat, balloon, stuff like that. But they have to be surrounded by double quotes, because if you don't, then you will get an error. So for string, you have to have double quotes, one that starts and then one that closes it. That's how the computer knows that you're talking about a string, or you want to add a string to like your code. So next is int, and it basically stores integers, which are whole numbers. So they're numbers that don't have decimals, so they can be 10. They can be, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 100, 567. So like they're those types of numbers. So integers can't be like 10.5 or 10.63. It cannot have a decimal. And yeah, for integers, it's not like a string. You don't have to surround it by quotes or like double quotes or anything. You just like leave it as it is. And then when we go to double double stores decimal numbers like 3.458 or 50.5946, like any numbers with decimals. And then float is actually very similar to a double. It stores decimal numbers, like I said, 3.458. However, it has like smaller range and precision than a double. So that's what makes them different. And you might have to think about it when you're like creating like the value for your variable of which one you might want to use. Then we go to Boolean. Booleans, they store values with two states, only two states, true or false. Like they're the only ones, okay? Like it's true or false, yes, no. Like those are the only ones. And then char or car, basically it stores single characters. So it can be A or B or C or D, like has to be a letter, one character. And they are surrounded by single quotes, not like a string, which is double quotes. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't let it get them mixed up. So for char, it's like single quotes, and then string is double quotes. That's what you have to remember. Okay, now we go to declaring variables. So variables in Java, they must be declared before they can be used. The declaration of a variable consists of the type of the variable, type, and then the variable name. And then you have to and then equal it to the optional initializer. So, which is the value. So the type of the variable specifies the type of data that the variable can store. And the name of the variable is an identifier that is used to refer to the variable like later on in your code. So that's how you know. For example, if you want like here, for example, name, maybe you want to later on print like output the name of a student. So say like system.println, and then you put name instead of like typing it all out. And so that's how you can remember it. And then, so the optional initializer is the value that is assigned to the variable when it's declared. So to declare them, you follow this format that I just explained. And then on this slide, I have some examples. The ones I pointed out are like, for example, this one. So they have the data type, which is string, and then the variable name, which I made as name, and then equals and then the value. Here, since it's a string, so I wrote my name is Sara, right? But since it's a string, I had to close it and open it with double quotes, because that's how the machine knows that it's actually a string. So that's my name, Sara, but in double quotes. And then here, for example, int age equals 16. It's an integer. There's no decimal place. So yeah, 16. You don't need any quotes, nothing. You can also note how I'm closing them all with semicolons, which is something really important in Java. Okay, so here, for example, it's a Boolean. You type Boolean for it. And for example, Boolean enjoy Java. Say enjoy Java is true. So the type is Boolean, the variable name is enjoy Java, and then the value is true. Okay, so we can do more examples. So if we practice using this online compiler, let me just open it. Can you guys see the compiler? I'm not sure. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. So we can do more practices on the Sonic compiler. Here you can basically run like basic Java code. So if you guys can open it, I don't know if you guys opened it yet, but I'll give you a minute. So when you open it, you see that they have like this printed out for you. We'll get more into this later, but like for now, I guess you can delete it or something, because we're going to talk about variables. So okay, I'm gonna write something. So Boolean, like let's say you have a pet and you want to store what type of pet it is. So first of all, like we'll make a Boolean like showing if you have a pet or not. So like have pet, as you can see, the variable starting with a lowercase letter. Have pet equals true. Okay, that's the first thing. And then you want to store like the pet name and the pet type in a string, right? So the string pet name equals I don't know, Fluffy. So then that's the name of your pet name, the variable pet name, type is string, and then like here is what you're storing inside of it. So Fluffy, right? And then maybe you want to like say what the pet type is, or like what type of animal. So like string pet type. I don't think pet type makes sense, but okay. Okay, let's say it's a cat. String pet type equals cat. So that's another instance of using a string. Also, you can use, if we want to talk about double, you can use double for like, for example, employee salary. So you can say double salary equals, say they like make, I don't know, 20.5 an hour maybe. So now you're storing the salary of an employee right here for the variable salary. You can also use char for like a grade on a test, for example. So char grade equals, and then we do single quotes here. So I can say like, oh, B, for example. So that would be like your grade. But let's say we want to store a phone number. What like data type would we use? Like, does anyone have an idea? Or does anyone know?
You mean out of the ones we've written?
Yeah, out of the ones we've like
Right.
talked.
Maybe name?
No, like did like string or Boolean or double?
No idea.
Okay. Does anyone else?
Maybe integer?
Integer? Okay. So the actual answer, if you want to store a phone number, is like string, which it might be surprising, but when you store phone numbers, you like have to do like a string. That's because like if you choose anything else, you won't be able to store like leading zeros if you use integers. They won't like take the beginning of the number is 0. And like when you use an int, it could be too small for a phone number, since it might take it as like 55 million, stuff like that. And then a float or double, it has risk of data loss and like other stuff. So also, like, if you use a phone number, it won't be used for like calculations or operations. So really, it's like a string just works best if you go like 0, 5, I don't know, random numbers. Probably not that long, but that's what happens when you use like a phone number. Okay, so that's a fun little fact. Okay, next. Okay, so declare versus instantiate. In programming, declaring and instantiating are two completely different concepts. No, they're not completely different. I'm sorry. They're two different concepts. Declaring a variable, it means to define it. So, like, you specify its type and name. So here, like, the type is int, and then the name is number. Basically, you don't create an actual variable object in the memory, because that's when you go to instantiate. So instantiating basically means to create an actual variable object in memory. So if you see here, the following code, this one declares a variable name, number, int. And then this code does not actually create an actual variable object in memory. It just defines the variable and specifies its type and name. That's what declare means. But then the following code over here, it instantiates the variable and variable number by assigning it the value 3. So this code basically creates an actual variable object in memory and assigns it the value of 3. And so basically, to sum up, they're and then you can like put them all together here, which is what we just did that time. So declare and instantiate. So yeah. To sum up, basically, the difference between them is that declaring a variable defines it and specifies its type name, and then instantiating a variable creates an actual variable object in memory. It's important to note, though, that declaring a variable does not create an actual variable object in memory, since this is only done when it's instantiated. Okay, so there are certain rules with variables that you have to remember all the time. So you can't use a variable until it's assigned a value. So I can't say we'll get into this in a bit, but I can't say system.out.println like name if all I have is string name, because there's no variable to it. What will it print? There's nothing. So you have to assign a value so you can use it later on. Also, if you use it, it has to have the same spelling which you will use for later on. It can't be a different one because the computer won't know and might give you an error. So you have to remember the spelling, and then you have to assign something to it. Then variable names are case sensitive. Also, variables, they can't contain spaces, so you can't write. So you can't write my age. That won't work for a variable. So yeah, you have to remember not to add any spaces. Additionally, the first character must be an alphabet or an underscore. You can't put just a number. You can't put to name. It has to be either underscore name or just name, basically. So yeah, those are the variables that you have, the rules that you have to remember when declaring variables and basically stuff like that. So you can't use it until assigned a value. It has to be the same spelling that you use for later on. Remember the same spelling. Maybe you have an underscore or something. You have to do that. They're case sensitive and they can't contain spaces. And the first character must be an alphabet or underscore. Okay. Okay, so now we get to output or printing. So the print in Java, you can print or display certain values on your screen. So there are two ways to print in Java. So the println and print method, they're the ones used to output values or print text in Java. So okay, so using the system.out.println method, so this method, it basically prints a line of text to the console. So the text that is printed can be any type of data such as strings, integers, and floats. But here, since you have ln, that means it prints it on a new line. It's a new line. But then here, for this one, it prints a line of text to the console, but it doesn't add a new line character at the end. This means that the next line of the text is printed, we printed on the same line as previous line. So like if you try it out, we could do so system.out.println like print 6. You can do it again here. If we run it, you see that, yeah, it puts it on the same line. Whereas if I put here like println, oh, yeah, what? Sorry, you have to put it here because this is the one that adds the space after it, a new line. So, because this one will print 6 and then new line, exactly. So it prints it on a different line rather than when you just have system.out.print and then just print. So here there are certain examples. So you can print hello world. You can notice that here, since you're trying to print out like words, so like a string, you have to put double quotes. You can't just like write, you can't, for example, write hello world, because if you see what that's going to show you, it's going to give you, yeah, an error. So when you're like printing like text, remember to put in like double quotes. Hello world, exactly. So that's how it works. We can also like, but then for numbers as well, like ints, you can print like that and it will print it. And yeah, and also you see here how, okay, so basically here it's printing a variable which we stored before, guess its name, and then next to it a number. So we can like try writing that out right now. So for example, we do int x equals 34. So let's say this is just a random number, and then string name equals Sada. So we can like print out like x, which is a number, and then we can print out the name. So to print out like this variable, just write like the name of the variable. So if I write here system.out.println name, the output is gonna be the value Sada. So if you watch it right now, so it's 34x and then Sada. You can also go like, you can also say, hello, my name is, then, so basically right now you're adding some text before the variable, then you can just add a plus. So this plus will basically print it right after you say this. So yeah. So hello, my name is Sada. You see how that works? Okay, so if you guys want, I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to try it out. Like you can maybe try what we did here, basically just like to see how it works. If you get any errors or any questions, then feel free to ask me. Okay, so did you guys have a chance to try it out? Okay, I hope that's a yes. I have like a simple, short, like exercise, like question, that I want you guys to like figure out. Let me just write it right now. Pay attention to variables, and what I'm basically using. Okay, so does anyone know what the output might be? And like, don't actually type this in, just like take a look at it and try to think about what it could be. Okay, well, I'll ask another question then. If I run it, it gives me here 22 and then 8. Does anyone know why it printed 22 and not like 4? Since here, it printed 4 plus 4, which is 8. Why did it not print like 4?
Maybe because of the space.
Because of the what?
There's like space before that plus and after it.
No, that actually doesn't matter. Like if you see one again, but think about like what I wrote before. Because if you see number, what is the? It's a variable, right? But what's the type?
Is it because it's an integer?
Sorry.
Is it because it's an integer?
Yeah, because yeah. So number is not an integer; it's a string, and as we said, see, it's string, but it's in like quotation, so it's 2. So when you put a string and then you put the plus mark, the plus like symbol, and then another string, it's just gonna print it next to each other. So it's not an integer because for an integer, when you put a plus next to them, the machine will like know that you want to add them together. That's why it gave me an 8 here. But here it just like since it's a string and it knows a string, it's just gonna like it's just gonna print them next to each other. But if we change it and like make it an int, then it's actually gonna print out like 4. So does everyone understand that, or do you want me to like repeat? Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone did understand. To sum up, basically, the system, the print methods, they're both like very useful for printing output to the console. The print ln method is generally used for printing when you want to print a line of text and add a new line like character at the end. Whereas the print method, it's used when you want to print a line of text without adding a new line or character at the end. Okay, so okay, this is a fun exercise you can also do. So here, what we did, in the beginning, they declared a variable, int num, but then they said that this variable, which is an integer num, is equal to 23. So when you see this in here, it means that it's going to print out a 23, right? So what do you think is the output? What is the computer, like, what is the machine going to print out? Like, for example, in here, what's going to happen? So they're printing something. It's a println, so it's going to be on 3 lines, right? Okay. I'll give you guys a minute, and then if no one knows, then I'll explain it. Okay, does anyone have an idea? Okay, I'll explain it then. So first of all, here we're gonna print 3 different things on 3 different lines. You can see that when system.println, these print methods over here, and then they're gonna add a new line character after each one. So it's gonna be 3 separate lines. You can see in the beginning here, they declared a variable. So the variable name is num, and then the data type is an integer. So you know that it's gonna be a whole number. Then later on, they said here that this variable num, it's equal to 23. So we're storing, so like num is basically a container for the number 23. And then when you go to the next line over here, you can see that they're printing something. So what they're printing here is the number that they wrote. This has nothing to do with this variable over here. It's just something that they chose to write right then and there. So first of all, you know that they're gonna output 23. If you go to the next line, so you can see that they're printing something else. And you see over here, oh, they're printing num, right? If you go back, you can check that, oh, num equals 23. So they're not gonna print the word num, because if they were, then they would have to put it in between double quotes, quotation marks. So since there isn't, you know that this is a variable, which is here. So it's gonna print out 23. And then we go to the next line. So far that's like 2 23. So 23 and then another 23. If you go to the next line, you see that, okay, there's a number in between quotation marks. So it'll still print it. It can print whatever is inside of these quotation marks, right? So you know here, this number 23, this is what's going to print. And I can So basically the output is going to be 23, 23, 23. It's just going to be like 23 3 times on 3 different lines. So yeah, that's how that works. Okay, let's review like variables real quick because they're extremely important. So we said first that we have string. So string is a variable where you can store text in. So you can have string for like food. Maybe it's the name of a food. So maybe you can say like chicken. Or okay, let's not say chicken because that can like, I don't know. Let's say like burger or pasta. Okay, pasta. Really doesn't matter whatever you write, but okay. So string is for text, and this text has to be in between quotation marks. Whatever you write over here is in between quotation marks because that's how the computer knows that, oh, you're talking about string. You're talking about like certain text, like words.